In this video, we'll call it the fun video. We'll talk about pedals, which seems to be what everybody wants to know about. So you can see what I have here. It might look like a lot, but it's kind of what I deem the essentials, and then maybe a few toys. So I'll try to explain it. There's kind of a lot of things going on, and a lot of things you'd want to know when you're setting up, a pedal board for yourself or something. I have this done by my good friend JM, who has a company called Clear Tone Effects Solutions. And he kind of wires all this up for me and lays it out, and it attaches it, makes sure it's solid, and it's not going to go anywhere when I kick on it or something. So if you can afford to have somebody who knows what they're doing go through it, I definitely recommend that. Even though I know how to do it myself, it's just kind of nice to have someone else do it. So, all right, let's just walk down the signal chain. It is a little bit torn apart in the beginning of things, simply because those airport guys we all know and love, man, they just like to tinker with things. So right now the first thing my guitar is seeing is the tuner, which is about what it would run into first anyway. This pedal here, which is called a Zvex, super hard on, usually will split my signal, and one side will go to the tuner, and then the other side will kind of continue through the rest of the board. And that's just nice, just to have the tuner kind of out of the way. I can leave it always on, and I don't have to worry about anything going on with that. It stays there, it's on its own deal, good to go. But for now, because those guys just decided to change up my board for me, we're going from the tuner into a fuzz pedal. So there's the clean tone. This particular fuzz pedal is kind of like a fuzz face. It's kind of this really, really thick, kind of crazy fuzz, and I'm kind of trying it out, and I really like the way this one sounds. I should also say too that fuzz pedals, not to be confused with overdrives or distortions. Fuzz pedals really like to be closer to your guitar pickups, so that's why I have this one first in chain before compression or overdrives or anything. Fuzz can be very reactive to what you're doing with your volume knob on the guitar, to the way you're playing. So that's kind of why you want to have it first. So there's the clean tone. There's the fuzz tone. Pretty crazy, and you might ask, how would you ever use that in worship music? That's just crazy and over the top. And a couple of years I might have thought so too, but when you're doing some sort of like kind of cool sustaining octave line in a big song, it just kind of, it's just different than an overdrive. If you play something, it's just dirty, and it's got a lot of sustain, so you can kind of come up with new things that way. We have a song on Tides called "Breaking Through," where I do something like that. I'm playing octaves, and I use the fuzz to kind of give it the sustain that I want, and it kind of goes like this. That part happens in the bridge, and if I just stacked a bunch of overdrives, it has a tendency to kind of compress and not sustain the way I want it to. So a fuzz is a really cool option for me, just for a few things, coming up with maybe some lines that don't necessarily fit the typical worship box but can still be applied. So that's fuzz. It likes to go early in the chain. Next, I kind of go down the line and hit the compressor. And compression is super, super important for electric guitar, I think. There's a lot of guys that kind of like to be on the side of, I don't like compression. It messes with the dynamic and the feel of my guitar, but I think compression done right and compression understood is a huge improvement to your tone. And this particular one, I really, really recommend for electric guitar. This is a Walrus Audio Deep 6 compressor, and I'm sorry that I have two of the knobs taped up. They tend to get kicked with my foot when I'm, using the volume guy. So they're taped. I think they're set pretty much straight up at noon. So if, you have this pedaler, you can easily see what those controls are. They're not technically doing anything special. I have the compression set really light. And as you can see, it's got this little knob right down here called the blend knob. And what that does is all the way up, it's, your compressed signal. As you can hear, that's just slammed, And then all the way off is just dry signal, no compression at all. And you can already see that I've gained so much more size in my tone, between that and between that. And that's because what a compressor does is kind of takes those high peaks of your signal and your low peaks of your signal and kind of just squeezes them together. And the more compression you add, the more you squeeze that waveform, which essentially that waveform, it's getting smaller. So a lot of guys that use compression, I find they compress a little bit too much, and they make their guitar sound really, really small. And that's just a total bummer. It doesn't sit right in the mix, and it kind of makes for a wimpy guitar tone. So what I like to use a compressor for is sustain, and that's why most guys, I think, like to use them. They just compress them because they'll, sustain for days. Again, with it off, I can play. And you can kind of hear, the volume kind of start to taper off, whereas opposed to if I crank it again, where it does sound smaller, the level stays consistent longer. So what you really want to do is find a balance between the two. So I like to take the blend knob, and when I kind of dial in the compression sound that I like, I'll start with it off, and I'll just play a little bit and kind of roll up that blend knob. That might be a little too far. I tend to keep it pretty low. Just enough to give me the sustain I'm looking for, but without making my tone quieter or sound smaller or thinner. So even though I just turned it off, that's actually something that I keep on all the time while I'm playing, and is a little bit of my secret weapon. I feel like just because it just kind of creates the feel that I want all my gear to have. And I should also say it's a very natural sounding compressor. Some compressors get really finicky depending on what guitar you put through them. This one sounds good with every guitar I've thrown through it. So moving on from the compressor, we go to this big red box up here, and this is a Pog, and essentially what it does is creates different octaves below or above the notes you're playing. So an example would be, if I play a G note, and then I turn the Pog on, this setting is creating an octave below and an octave above the notes that I'm playing. So here it is, off again, and on. And this pedal's pretty cool for just kind of getting weird sounds or taking, big leads and just making them pop a little bit more. If I played a line that went something like this, something that's kind of spaced out, and it doesn't have a lot of movement in it. It's just a few notes. I can use it in a big section of a song with the pog. To give it a little lift. So I'll play that same riff just without the pog and then with it so you can kind of hear what it does. So you can see it just kind of makes it a little bit bigger sounding. Obviously the octave up helps it cut through the mix. The octave below kind of gives it a little more size for a single note line or something. You can do things like make it sound like an organ if I change one of the settings here. Sounds kind of crazy and organy. Not necessarily my favorite thing for worship, but some other guys have done some cool things with that sound. All right, so the last thing that's really cool about this particular pog is the fact that I've got presets in it. Like you can see, the second preset is for the song Shepherd, that octave line that happens, in the second verse, where I use a little bit of octave up and a little bit of the lower octave. You can hear the difference between it dry and then with the pog. Just kind of makes it stand out a little bit more and makes it just a little more unique, All right, moving on to the drive section, which is where we go out of this. The first thing is this M drive pedal, made by Emerson Custom Guitars. He's the same guy that does the wiring harnesses, the guitar electronics and stuff. And this pedal is really, really great. It's just a really simple, clean boost. It's got 2 knobs, so it's really hard to screw up. And there's the clean tone. And there's the clean. So it just adds just a little bit more to what your guitar's already got going on. It's a little on the dark side, but I actually like that in terms of the the voicing for this pedal. So the way I use that is to kind of push these other 2 pedals you see here. This is a JHS Super Bolt, and this is an older pedal called the Expandora. And these are kind of the 2 main drives of the board. The Super Bolt is first in chain, and you can hear it's semi dirty, but it's pretty bright. A lot of times I'll kind of leave this on all the time, and it's really responsive to to how hard I play. I can play light, or I can play really hard, and it just kind of does what my hand's doing sonically. So that's a really great pedal, and then I'll use the M drive to kind of push that, which the point of that being to hit the pedal on the front end. It's going to keep kind of the same characteristic. It's not going to get a ton louder. It's just going to be like I crank the pedal up itself. And it's just easier than, twiddling knobs with your foot mid-set. So that's that sound. And I'll use that for, songs that are a little bit more chill and relaxed. And then the Expandora is more of a much dirtier pedal. There's the clean tone. And there's the Expandora. It's similar to a Rat pedal, but it's a little thinner and a little more mid-rangey, which I really, really like for worship music. Stoogie used one of these things for years and probably still does, and Billy Gibbons of ZZ Top used like 6 of them in a row to get his crazy fuzz tones and stuff. And it's just a really, really cool pedal. I don't see a ton of guys using them anymore, but I'm just really digging the way it sounds. So between those 2 pedals, I can really, really cover a lot of ground. And I'll generally switch between those 2 if I need a little bit more. It's the M drive. And then the last pedal for kind of the boost overdrive section is this Joyride. And this pedal is really cool because it's got a lot of headroom, and it comes after all the other drives. So I really use it for like a solo boost. It's got the EQ on it, so I can kind of shape it a little bit. You can see, a little bit of the low end is sucked out, and the treble's just about half, maybe a little over, but it's really cool for things get a little bit fatter, things get definitely louder. And I don't know, just the way this pedal reacts with my hands, I've always really, really enjoyed, It just feels really good and sounds good, so I love playing solos with it. That about does it for the overdrive section. We'll move on to reverbs and delays next.